Go ahead and if you're listening to this later on YouTube, then please go ahead and subscribe to this station so you can keep up with shows in the future. Also, if you like dystopian literature that perhaps sheds light into our actual future when it comes to such things as biotechnology, then check out my latest sci-fi, The Destiny of Our Past. Yeah, you can find that at Amazon. Just type in The Destiny of Our Past. And okay, anyway, though, let's proceed with the show. Now, one of the aspects, though, of my book deals with how the elite try to use entertainment, education, and even just absolute government power to discourage birth rates. And ultimately, they sell this on the idea of environmentalism, but at the same time, there's a hidden agenda. There's something more. Kind of let's get rid of this group of people so that we have everything to ourselves as an ultimate goal. You'd have to read the book in order to get into the various details that I've put in there. But is that really fiction as it comes to today? Because I've noticed something very interesting that, you can find many articles, or you can just go to very good statistics. Go to CIA.gov World Factbook, and you can look up any country on Earth and see what its birth rate is. And you'll find that the birth rates in the industrialized West, including Australia, New Zealand, and so forth, are not just low, they are drastically low. I mean, they've plummeted to record low levels. And you would think that this would kind of put an end to a lot of the propaganda that's aimed at getting people to have less kids. Okay? I grew up at a time when I still remember the commercials on TV. One showing a baby and then like, oh my gosh, we have more of these babies, we're going to wind up, all dying in the end because the world's going to get overpopulated. It's going to go all Soylent Green or something, or various other sci-fis of that era in which civilization collapses because of population. The problem is, this is very ironic, in that why would there be more and more and more propaganda aimed at getting people to feel guilty, especially aimed, one of the articles I read was that, young women tend to take on this, I'm not going to have kids for the sake of the environment, more than young men. And I would speculate that is because you can convince people with higher empathy and concerns for humanity to feel that it is some way a noble gesture to sacrifice having children for the good of humanity. I've known people, I know one woman in particular, she said that when all the propaganda stuff was going on in the early 70s, and she was pregnant, she got accidentally pregnant, her and her husband, they got accidentally pregnant with a third child, that they had an abortion because they felt like, oh my gosh, we can't be so irresponsible to, have a third child. She regrets it. She feels like she was lied to, but still, child's gone. She's past fertile age, and that's the story. I think a lot of times people forget this one aspect to human biology, and that is we are mortal. Okay? We are mortal. So it's a never-ending process of people dying and people getting born. Now, in the past, thanks to such things as vaccinations and better sanitations in cities and so forth, there came to be what's known as a population pyramid that looked like a pyramid. You know, the apex, you had old people, and at the base, you have young. You still see this in many countries in the world, particularly in Africa, where you have a lot of young people and a very small number of old people. And that has changed in recent years to where the pyramid no longer really exists in industrialized countries. It's almost turning into kind of a rectangle, or where you have lots of old people, but also have lots of, you don't have a whole bunch more young people. In fact, in some countries you have more old people than you have young people. Okay. And I define that as people under the age of 18. And that's going to grow. According to Global Trends 2030, the proportion of the population that's elderly is going to skyrocket in the next few decades. Now, the thing is, though, that unless we come up with some sort of really cool nanotechnology or some sort of biotechnology that allows humans to live, let's say 200 years or 300 or whatever, then what will happen is these elderly people in like 2050, 2060, they will just start dying off. And many of them have no children. They never had kids. And the thing is that this is going to cause a lot of social and economic ramifications that most people tend to ignore. But you only have to get someone to decide not to have children in their reproductive years. So most of the time, people marry within their own age group, give or take a couple years. So even though men can have children all the way up till, death, in many or most cases, if they're married to someone who no longer can have kids after, let's say, 40, then it doesn't matter whether they're just as fertile when they're 40 or 50 as they were when they were 25 or 30. I mean, they're not going to have more kids. So you only have to persuade young people to forego having kids from about the age of 20-ish, in most cases in the developed world, till the late 30s. Let's just say 40. And much of that time in modern culture is getting taken up by career aspirations and so forth. So if you figure that many young women, for instance, they go to school, they go to college, they go maybe to graduate school, they get out, maybe they want to spend a couple years working, they're not married yet. So you may wind up with that woman finally, let's say, getting married. If we go by national averages for the United States, it's much later for countries like Japan and Europe, the continent of Europe. If they get married and start thinking about kids, they're usually in their late 20s, maybe 28, 29, even 30. So now that window of opportunity for having children is about 10 years. And so the thing that you have to consider there is that 10 years is over. And, if they decided to have children during that time period, then hopefully they will be able to get pregnant. There's no guarantees. And then if they decided not to have kids, it doesn't matter if they change their mind when they're 41, in many cases. And say 45, it's, it's history, in most cases. I mean, we all have heard about, a woman naturally getting pregnant when she's 50 or something like that. But those are exceptions to the biological rule. Now, the thing is that this means that the decision a person makes when they're young will impact their lives all the way to their death. And, I was asked this question. I'm going to do a show about this, I think, next week, about free will. A young woman who incidentally has said that, she's very intelligent and healthy and so forth. And she was commenting that she's never going to have kids. But she asked me the question, is there free will, in my opinion? And I said there was, but it's very limited. It's like the analogy of I can decide to take a boat. Let's say I'm going to travel from the United States to Europe. I can make a decision whether I'm going to take a boat or an airplane. Now, once I've made that decision and I get on either the airplane or the boat, the decision has been made. The free will to decide which to take does exist, but not the free will to suddenly change my mind in mid-course. Like if I'm halfway across the Atlantic and I suddenly think, I should have been on the boat. I can't just magically walk through some sort of portal and now be on the boat. And I'm going to be subjected to the environment that's around me as to what I can do, how long it's going to be till I get to my destination. These are things out of my power. And the same goes for biology, for the most part, that your decision, yes, you have the free will to decide, but after that crucial period, that window of fertility is over, it's over. Now, that means if we assume that a person can live, let's just say you keep yourself healthy, you don't, smoke and drink and so forth. Let's say you can go for, 85 years. All right? You're going to live to be 85. That means that from 40 to 85, that's the majority of years of your life. And we don't even have to look at the childhood ages. Okay? Whatever. But let's just say your adult life, most of your life will not be spent with children if you decide not to have kids. It's over. On the other hand, if you do have kids, now that decision has been made. Now you have to, deal with how that will change your life. But I would propose that I could throw out all kinds of wonderful ideas about, having kids. Okay, I have children, love it, would never trade anything for the world for those kids. However, you do have it's going to change your life. And I would say for the positive, but on the other hand, if you don't have kids, for whatever reason you choose, whether you believe the world's going to come to an end or such nonsense. I mean, yes, there are threats to the world. There always has been. Okay? But now they're trying to scare people more. I have a lot of, I just sign up for all kinds of news feed. And I get these articles that are more geared to the left, obviously, but there's going to be a higher proportion of young people getting these articles than old people. And these articles are saying, oh my gosh, you're going to ruin the environment and how wonderful it is not to have kids. And you decide not to have kids, and then suddenly you realize, wait a minute, the world's still here, everything seems really good, and you're 50. There's no going back. Well, I suppose technically if you're a man, you could divorce your wife. I've seen this actually happen, where a couple that decides not to have kids, the husband and the wife decide, but then later there's a change of mind. Well, she's past fertility age and he finds a younger woman, and then they do, he gets to have kids. She doesn't. Now, I would propose, and I don't know what is with, I would propose there is some sort of coordinated agenda taking place, just like in my book, another plug, The Destiny of Our Past. I think that there is a coordinated agenda that's put on by, the powers that be. It doesn't have to be conspiratorial or anything, but just a mindset amongst those who control much of the media, entertainment, education, and so forth. Their mindset is, well, the world's overpopulated. And that's all you have to have is their mindset, because then they will use that power and influence to make sure that you understand their point of view. And there's not much of a counterbalance. Okay? It used to be religion was a balance. You could have the various Christian religions that would say, no, having kids, it's part of the Bible. It's not been revoked. I mean, the commandments given to Noah and Abraham and also to Adam, I almost forgot him, are still in place. They have not been, there's not been any kind of council in heaven to say, no, we reached this point of population, so now it's time to stop. But most Christian religion today is fluff. They'll give you a nice message, a feel good, pat on the back. It's kind of like in many cases, kind of like a daytime talk show that tries to pep you up and believe in yourself. God's there with you, holding your hand, and everything's great. That seems to be the message nowadays, rather than this is what is in the Bible. These are the hardcore, maybe uncomfortable aspects of life. And so, if a minister has a congregation where a lot of people are divorced, he's not going to talk so much about divorce. If he has a congregation in which he feels like if he gets up and says, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth, and many of the congregations kind of like rolling their eyes, then he's not going to give that message. So this is why all this negativity and propaganda actually is going to have a bigger and bigger and bigger impact, to the point that I think we're going to go through a fertility transition, if nothing stands in its way, of most people not even having kids, and then just kind of the phasing out of much of the population, starting with the Western world, but then it will spread to the rest of the world as well. And so it doesn't have to be some sort of dystopian model that's being promoted here. But anyway, I just thought I'd talk about that and just say, hey, kids are great. Okay, they really are. And but that's up to the individual to look at. But try to get more than just one side, not just we're all going to die if I have a kid or something like that. Anyway, that's time's running out here, so that's the end of the show. Urge you to come back next week for another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCYP TV Productions. Take care now.